so we have something. So.
Yeah.
I don't mind cross-marketing IEI, but through their bags, but about how to.
Okay.
Okay.
I think they sell them in the bookstore bag like that. Some that just say
Oh my
fine.
god. I was like,
fine.
what?
And IEI has plenty of tissue paper,
Oh, good.
so we'll just use some tissue paper. I would really, really like, even if we don't have a finalized logo, I would really like to get these notebooks ordered, at least the first batch of notebooks.
Oh, I wanted to set up a time to talk about
Okay.
some end of the year stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to get that on the calendar.
Okay.
The switch.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey,
How's it going?
good. Your guys' presentations went well last night. You didn't,
I didn't put that.
you
That's
didn't-
right. We are.
The other two teams that did, they presented well.
Yes. Did you get my email?
I did.
Okay.
And I didn't respond to it.
Yes.
So, how are you for next week?
I should be fine.
Oh, I
Okay.
really got slammed this week. Not an
No,
excuse.
no,
right?
no,
It's
no,
back.
no, it's fine, it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to follow up or communicate anything with the speaker that you CC'd me an email on?
You got to remind me what it was, buddy. Professor Portland. So Jenny has reached out. I understand. Double check later, but I think Jenny reached out to him for a headshot and a bio.
Okay.
Beyond that, you two work it out.
Okay.
Okay. So you probably want to. You don't have to worry about parking. You don't have to worry about it. I mean, he's faculty, so
Okay.
he's in the HR department.
So as far as topic, that's covered.
Yeah, he and I will saw that.
Hi.
Tony Seaton.
It's good to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you as well. We had Louise Trignan here last week.
Oh,
and
really?
She was so
She's one
excited
of
to
my
hear
favorite
that you're going
people.
to, she's everyone's favorite.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, how
It's
do you
hard
not
to-
like
right.
her?
I was just going to say that. It's hard not to like her.
Exactly. Well, I'm just so you know, I'm the academic advisor for just the club and our retirement consulting program from the school. So, the people
No
like
pressure.
yourself
Right?
are willing to.
No pressure.
No, the pressure's on me because I'm so appreciative that you would make time for the club. And, you know, these are, you know, we try and pack what we can into the curriculum. There's so much that just doesn't fit well. So, you know, Louise did active listening last week. Your body language, and this is great stuff that they need and that the industry tells us that they need. So I just want to thank you personally for your willingness to come by here and do that. So.
You know, actually, when I was putting the technical, I thought, this would be something that would help people at work. You know, maybe not from a consultant's perspective, but just understand, how your body language impacts impression making.
Right.
So I had that in mind when I was putting this together to reuse it, actually.
Sure, why not? I mean,
Yeah.
why create content that you
Hello.
can't? I know, I'm the same way. Whenever I create a class, I'm asking myself, can I use it in a workshop setting? Can I use it commercially? I mean, where does it have applications?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
excellent. Well, again, please make yourself comfortable.
Okay.
So delighted that you could be here. Do you need you have a slide deck? Do you need a clicker? I brought one with me.
A clicker would be nice,
Okay.
because I'm not a phone person.
Neither am I. I got to get out in the middle of it. So.
So you need a clicker, you have a clicker?
I would.
Almost didn't because I loaned it to a speaker the other day, and to make a statement, he decided to drop the mic, but it was my clicker, and it exploded on the table.
Oh no.
What was that?
That when you drop the mic, you have to pretend that you dropped it.
Yes.
Not you dropped it.
Exactly. Well, he was a little more old school, and he
And
let
it
the whole
did
thing
it.
go. So.
Really?
That's all right. I was just making a little bit.
And then
This
you're
is at
back,
work.
you're back to work.
No, this was at work. This is at work. So there was so much more. I was like, I was the second person, no, the third person, and the first two people took longer than they should.
And then you have to like.
Yeah. Right. So I'm really good at that.
Okay. We just first about it. So would you take 2 minutes to
Yeah, do some business first. So, yeah.
Jackie,
Okay, great, thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I don't want to take away from Jackie's time, so I just want to get the ball rolling. I know it's a gorgeous day, so I think that we all should give ourselves a pat on the back for making it here. And thank you for being on time so that we can get the most out of this. This is a continuation on our soft skills theme this semester. Last week, I don't know if everybody was able to get to the art of active listening, but this week is body language for consultants, and we've never done this topic before, so I'm really excited that we have a longtime HR professional and expert, Jackie Linton, with us from the city of Philadelphia to share what she's learned in her experience about the importance of body language for consultants, but really for anybody in any field. But before we get started, I'm just going to hand it over to Tony so he can, just for 2 minutes, give you an update on what's going on. All right, thanks, Ted.
Thank you. It's a Friday light in here. Just the weather was too good, and it's here. I also know on the first floor we've got a huge activity going on. So I wanted to mention that to you guys. So for those of you who aren't aware, we have a major event going on the first floor. It's really kind of showcasing Israeli technology startups. This is something that's very near and dear to your dean's heart, being from Israel himself. And so this is an excellent event. And I would encourage you, if you have any interest in entrepreneurship, technology, I know some of you are in the classes, and part of your project is you had to do a discussion on technology consulting. There's going to be a panel discussion that actually it kicks off like around 12:45, 12:50. And so I would encourage you to go if you have the time. If you're undergrad, there's 5 immersion points available for that. So that's always a nice thing to get. It's going to be a great discussion. And there's lots of cool companies to go meet and talk to, the various tables down there. Many of them are looking for internships. Some of those may actually be internships overseas, which are kind of cool and sexy as well. Talking about internships, I just had a meeting this morning with our partner at SAP. And so as I was talking to Dan this morning, he said, hey, I've been told that I need to bring on a couple interns. So he will have room for 1, maybe 2 interns. He's not quite sure yet. It's open to undergrad or graduate level students. And so if you would like to do an internship at SAP, Dan's world is the transformational change world. His group, he runs all North America for that. Like I said, he needs 1 or 2 people. It would be a full-time 30, 40-hour gig, depending what you work out with him. He's open to making part of it virtual, part of it being on site. You'll be able to interact with him directly, as well as his senior managers who report up into him. So again, I know it's late in the season, but if you don't have a summer internship and you're looking for an opportunity, and yes, it is a paid internship, reach out to me directly, and I will give you Dan's contact information. Spread the word to your classmates and others and other people in the club. And so this is a direct result of what you guys do as a club, is the interest of firms like this to further support your development in the field. So I'm excited about that. So with that, am I handing off to Jackie? Jackie, again, thank you so much for your time this morning or this afternoon. I look forward to learning from you.
Great, thank you. Hello, everybody. How's it going?
Pretty well. Enjoying the weather.
Nice, great. So I want this to be interactive, right? Should be a discussion among a few close friends. That would be you and me. And so at any time during the conversation, if you want to stop me and ask questions, feel free, okay? I put together a few thoughts that I thought might be really helpful, and I'm happy to share that with them after the session is over if you'd like to get it in writing, okay? So let's get started. So what do you think Give me some ideas of body language for consultants. What kind of things do you think about?
Confidence.
Confidence, yep.
Be able to put on the poker face sometimes.
Poker face, yes. When they say something like, you go, really? No, right? Exactly.
Kind of like being attentive, like showing that.
Yep. Absolutely. All of those are, one
I
more.
was going to say matching the body language of the person you're talking to.
You guys are so smart, man. I could just go to leave right now. All of these are really good examples of body language. And what we're going to do over the next 45 minutes or so is to explore them in a little more detail. Okay? Yeah. So what do you think the most important skill a consultant has?
The ability to listen.
Okay.
Communication.
Communication? Anybody else? How about this? Isn't that the name of the game? Right? For a consultant, your bread and butter is your ability to get people to come back or to recommend you to other people, right? So everything that you do needs to be focused on that. Whatever that happens to be, you want people to use your services and to recommend you to others. That is the most important thing that you can do as a consultant. And so your goal is to be perceived by others as, there are just 4 descriptors I put up there, but you could put others. You want to be seen as someone who's authoritative, who's approachable, who's competent and capable, right? And depending on who you're talking to, we could add other things to the list. But at the end of the day, it only matters if they consider your services valuable. That's the end game. And so how you do that is based on what you know, right? Whatever service you're offering, you need to know how to do that really well. It's based on how you present what you know. So the content, the technical pieces of what you present. It's also how you behave when you're presenting it. How much confidence you exude, how clear you are about the facts, how approachable and how connected you are with them, and how you interact with others. So, you know, if you're having a meeting with a client, or even if you're doing work with a client, it's really important for you to connect with the people that you're working with so that they say, oh my goodness, this person is really a good person to work with, right? Because at the end of the day, here's the thing. They could draw on someone in their organization if they had someone with those skills, right? So you have to differentiate yourself. You have to behave in a way that's different than what they could get by drawing on someone within their organization. So when you think about why this is important, take a look at this chart. When, you know, this came from Impression Management, a study that was done by Jay DePack, and he says that only 7% of the impression you make is based on what you say. The other 93% is based on how you say it. What your appearance is, what your tone, what your pitch, the speed of how you talk, all of those things determine whether or not someone evaluates you as being, you know, yep, this is someone I want to work with, or maybe not so much, right? And that is called impression management. And so I like for you to think about body language through the lens of impression management, because that's really what we're all about here. So when you think about impressions, people make judgments about you very quickly. I'm sure that when I stood up in front of this room, you immediately made some judgments about me. I'm not going to ask you what they were, but I'm sure you did, good, bad, or indifferent, right? And they may be things like the ones that are listed on this list. You might draw some conclusions about how I show up that might say, you know, this person comes from this kind of social status, or this kind of, they're this education level, or they're, you know, this level of friendliness. You have decided already those things about me, right? Impression management, then, is the process of portraying yourself in a way that you can get the results that you're looking for. So whatever those happen to be. If you're trying to convince someone that you're the person that should be doing this work for them, then you have to manage the impression that you give them. And there are 4 areas that I want us to look at today. I mean, there are lots of others, but the 4 that I think are really like in the moment, front and center, are, you know, how you dress, the level of eye contact you make, how you position yourself, and what your voice sounds like. All right, fair enough? So we're just going to talk about these in a little bit more detail. And in all, I say this is how you show up. you know, whatever it is, this is how you present yourself to the world. So, let's talk about dress, right? The thing you have to consider is, what does your dress say? And it can say any number of things. For instance, it might say, I'm careful, or I'm an innovator. Give me some examples of what a careful dress might look like. And I mean this for men and women, not just dress, but how you, what the clothes that you wear. Okay? Yes.
Very muted, a little flourishes.
Yeah. Muted colors.
Muted colors, muted styles, nothing too out there.
That's right. Okay. How about someone who's an innovator?
Very fashion forward, different cuffs, pocket square.
Okay.
Presence.
All right. So when you say fashion forward, do you mean like?
Something much more stylish and much more current rather than a much more traditional outfit.
Gotcha. Much more current, right? Someone who's sort of on the leading edge of what fashion is all about, right? What about being formal or laid back? Give me some example of each. What would a more formal dress look like? A business suit. But what kind of suit? Huh? Navy blue, dark colors, right? Right? White shirt, right? Blue tie, right? You know the uniform, right? What about for a woman? What might it look like?
Same thing.
Sensible heels.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe what do they call those little things that women used to wear?
Like it's not an ascot.
It's like a tie, but for a woman.
Yeah, it's like a ruffle.
Yeah, I forget what you call it. But you know what I'm talking about? You guys know what I'm talking about? Maybe not. This is like way back in the day. Okay, so those would be like very formal kinds of things. What about laid back?
Like maybe you'll have like a suit jacket, but you'll like unbutton like the top of your shirt, so you won't have like a tie.
Right. Or a sports jacket.
Right, sport jacket, so you're not like matching like your pants.
Exactly. And for a woman.
Like flowy dress, or just with the hair down, kind of not sprayed up, but kind of just
Okay.
be.
Yeah, or sweater versus a jacket. Right? That's a little bit more laid back, but still very professional, very business oriented, right? And what about someone who's rule based versus principle based? What might that look like? Any thoughts?
So I guess if it's rule based, then it's kind of like the expectation of your environment, right? So depending on like the company that you work for or the area that you're in, like you'll just adhere to what that is versus.
Right. But if you're showing up for the first time, right? What would a rule based outfit look like? In my mind, it would. Oh, did you know?
A formal.
A what?
Something formal.
Formal, yes. Or something that says, there are certain rules about certain colors that go together, right? Or certain styles that go together. So that would be, if you were dressed in that way. Like, for instance, you might say that if you were going to wear a black suit or a black skirt, for instance, there are only certain colors that you might wear with that, right? Like you wouldn't necessarily wear like a bright red because that's a little bit too much out there. You might wear something that's a little more muted, right? Because there's a rule that says when you do that, you tend to be more mainstream. Maybe that's a way to think about it. Versus if you're more principle-based, you say, these are colors that look good on me, i.e. my blue. Therefore, that's what I wear because I feel like that's a color that complements me. And it's not because that's a rule of, if I were even going to a very conservative place, I might still wear it, depending on the other things that we're going to talk about this morning. So that's more about being principle-based versus being rule-based. And then the next one is I represent your perspective versus I bring a different perspective. Now, this is one that says, what is it you want, how do you want to present yourself? When you go into an organization, do you want them to look at you and say, hey, I'm just like you? Or do you want them to see how different you are and what new and different things you can bring to the table? So therefore, if it's a very conservative organization, you might wear something that's a little bit more, less in the mainstream, right? If it's a more innovative company, you wouldn't go formal because that might be too much, but you might wear something a little bit more principle-based. If you went to an organization like Google when everyone's running around in jeans, you wouldn't run around in jeans, right? You'd want to set yourself apart. And then finally, the last one, I have a great attention to detail versus I'm more big picture. What might that look like?
For example, I have a great attention to details would be somebody that will approach
Okay.
a female.
Okay.
So it's like these little details, everybody would look at it.
Okay, that's a really good example. Yeah. So there's one piece, like a statement piece,
Yeah.
that you would wear, that says, I may be very conservatively dressed, but look at this, bow. Right. What else?
I think for men, like matching like your accessories or like having complementary things that all say like these fit together.
Yeah, like this new thing where it's like a camel colored shoes with blue suits. I think that's kind of a new trend, right, for men. And so putting that together with a pair of really fashionable socks, it's like, wow, this person has really thought about their outfit. Okay? And here's the takeaway on all of this, right? When you get dressed in the morning and you're about to go on a consulting engagement, you need to think about what the impression is that you're trying to make when you get dressed. Don't just pull out your favorite outfit out of the closet or, whatever. Be thoughtful about what you choose and why you choose it. I think about when I got dressed this morning, right? I thought about, okay, I was just saying to Jenny, this is the second presentation I've had to do today. And the other one was at work. And the first one was to a group of very senior executives in the city, right? Friday's a dress down day, right? And then the second one is with you guys. So when I got dressed this morning, I tried to think about, like, how do I want to present myself to this group of executives so that they think what I'm saying makes sense? And then how do I present myself to you guys so that you think it makes sense? So I don't know how well I did with it. I'm not going to ask. But I'm just saying I was trying to be thoughtful about it whenever I got dressed this morning. All right? So the next one is about eye contact. Yes?
I have a question. Can I talk about the big picture?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so the attention to detail was like the brooch. But if you're like more big picture, you're much more concerned about the overall outfit than eating one particular thing. Right? So for instance, if you're trying to present yourself as as someone who is ready to go to work, right? And by that I mean, sleeves rolled up, I'm ready to make things happen. You might choose an outfit that, while it's professional, tends to be more practical, right? Like for a woman, you may not wear heels, you may wear shoes that are more practical, right? And for a man, you may not wear a jacket, maybe you'll wear a sweater and a tie.
Or
Right.
button cuffs versus French.
Exactly. Thank you for that. I'm not all that up on men's clothes, but it's that kind of thing. It's like, what is the overall big picture that you're trying to create? All right. Okay, eye contact. Lots of people always say, you should always make eye contact, right? Right? Wrong. It isn't about only making eye contact, it's how you do it that makes the difference. Now, how many times have you ever had a conversation with someone and their eyes are just like boring into you, and it makes you feel so uncomfortable you want to look away? Ever had that happen? Huh? That's called a strength used to excess, right? That's too much eye contact. So when you're trying to convince people, there's a certain way of doing it, right? So here's some ideas. You want to think about like what else will demonstrate how you feel other than just looking at someone. If you smile, right, or you nod your head, or have some kind of affirmative action that says, yep, I'm with you on this, right? Also, other facial expressions that you have will also indicate whether you are on board or not on board, whether you're curious, thinking about it, wondering, trying to understand more. All of those things are important when you're looking at someone. And I always like to ask open-ended questions, especially if I don't really think I agree with what someone is saying. And I say that I don't think I agree because maybe it's just that I don't understand it enough. So rather than making declarative statements about, oh, well, I think it's like this, or, it should be like that. I think asking open-ended questions really kind of gets the person involved and helps you to helps them feel much more connected to you. Okay? Thoughts about that?
I had a professor, and he was a consultant at IBM back in like the 90s.
Mhm.
So he's a really, really cool guy. He said he used this trick a lot. He said he would use the phrase, help me understand.
Mm-hmm.
And so in two ways, either it's to actually help them understand something, or sometimes it's to force someone to kind of lay out their perspective
Mhm.
and realize that they're maybe missing something.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a persuasive tool,
Yep.
as well as like an information gathering.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good one. The one I like to use is say more. Right? Just say
Sure.
more. Whatever you're saying, just say more. Because I don't know what you're saying. But just say more. Okay? But any of those kinds of things, I think, are really good ways of kind of making sure that you understand what people are saying.
Question for you. Took a course in this many years ago. At that time, we talked about eye contact, and one of the concerns is locking gazes, right? That's where people really start to get uncomfortable. And so one of the techniques I was taught was look at the bridge of the nose, or actually right about the eyebrow line right there. So the person doesn't get uncomfortable, but you're still showing attention to them.
Mm-hmm. Well, a tool that I like to use is what I call soft eyes,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where actually, I'm not exactly looking like right at you. I'm
Right.
looking like just
You're correct.
just beyond your ear,
Got you.
right? And so it doesn't feel as like intense.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't actually come up with this. Someone told me about this, but I think it does work, especially if you're trying to hold a gaze for a long time,
Right.
right? Doing soft eyes, and also just like I'm talking to you now, like even as you're speaking, sort of avert your gaze one way or the other,
Right.
so that the person really understands that I'm not like boring into you. And if you were speaking to me, then I might do the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually think like too much eye contact sometimes feels like you're not paying attention because you're like zoned out on someone.
Yeah.
As opposed to like if you hear something and you're thinking about it and you go back to
Right.
it.
Right.
So if I was just like stand and like you're talking to me, then you
Exactly.
don't know if I'm actually paying attention to you or not because
Right.
I know action going on.
Exactly. And so, it's showing people that you are engaged by, movement, that kind of thing, is a great way. Now, what we're going to talk about next is going to seem like it's going to contradict that, but no worries, I'll explain it when we get to that piece. So let's talk about positioning. And positioning can be a lot of different things. It can be your posture, whether or not you stand like this, sort of with your shoulders rounded, your upper body closed, versus standing straight with your shoulders back, nice and tall. It could be whether you are doing this, right? Or even, even if you do this. If you do this versus like this, how does that feel to you? Do they feel the same? No? Tell me how they're different.
I feel like you're about to scold me.
Okay, like I'm about to scold you, like this?
It's boring.
Yeah, okay, maybe boring. But this kind of feels like what? Yeah, it's a nuance, but you can feel it more than you can explain it. And here's the difference. Is like this is when your hands are hidden, right? This is when you're hugging your body, which says, I'm closed, right? I don't want to hear what you have to say. Whereas this could just be, I'm just resting my arms. My hands are showing, I don't have anything to hide. I'm open to what you have to say. But if you don't remember that, don't fold your arms. That's like the safest way because this is probably a more open stance. Not probably, it is a more open stance than either one of these. But if you feel like you want to or need to fold your arms, just make sure you do it so that your hands are showing. Right? Okay. Movement. Let's talk about movement. Now, hand movement can be expressive or it can be distracting. Right? Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. And that's what you have to be careful about. You want to be natural and you want to be engaging to people so that you look sincere. But if you are the kind of person that really speaks a lot with your hands and you're always doing this kind of thing, that could be a problem. as a general rule of thumb, I like to say don't keep your hands below your belly button. Right? So if you're speaking with your hands, even if you tend to be very expressive, like I tend to talk with my hands, trying to keep them below my belly button helps it not be so distracting. Okay? The next one, face and hair touching. A lot of people will do this or that kind of thing. Oh my goodness. What does that say to you whenever you saw me do that? What does that say?
I don't want to shake your hand.
Huh? Insecure?
Uncomfortable.
Huh?
Uncomfortable.
In what?
Uncomfortable.
Inconfrontable? Okay.
Uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable? Okay, I'm sorry. Is that what you said? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
my
Which is
voice.
another thing that we're going to talk about is your voice. And that you're nervous. It says I'm nervous, right? Sometimes people will put their hands in their pocket and they'll jiggle change, or they'll be, fiddling with something in their hand. Or if you're sitting down, their leg will be moving. All of those are nervous reactions. And if you're trying to exude confidence with your client, that's a no-no. Okay? And repetitive gestures. And those are the things that I just talked about. If you have something in your hand, you have a pen, you keep, pumping up and down, or any kind of repetitive gestures can be distracting. So my advice is if you have a habit of doing those kinds of things, try sitting on your hands. Just try, not necessarily while you're talking to a client, but I'm saying just in general, when you're having a conversation, just try sitting on your hands and see how difficult it is for you to have the same conversation while you're not moving your hands. Just to practice not using your hands so much. All right? Okay,
Can I
pose.
suggest something?
Yeah.
I mean, something
Sure.
I use a prop sometimes,
Mhm.
so I'll have a notebook with me oftentimes, and as long as I have both hands on the notebook, or if I have a pen and both
There you
hands
go.
on, it reduces the amount of movement that's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good idea too. Anything that's going to help you to break the habit is really what you want to do. All right, pose, facing the person directly versus, talking to the person from the side. It has a very different impression whenever I talk to you like this versus when I talk to you like this, right? So you want to make sure that you're in a position where you can have the biggest impact. Sitting leaning forward or back. If we were sitting together, just to show this as an example, like I'm having this conversation with you, and you tend to be sitting back in your seat, then I might sit back too. But if you were to lean forward, then I would lean forward, right? Because I would follow your lead in terms of, making you feel more comfortable and making it look like we are more aligned, right? The next one is around power. Now, there's certain poses that exude more power than others, right? You know what they look like? Big, like, right? Does this look pretty powerful? Looks kind of silly, but this is a Superman pose, right? This is like, I can do anything kind of pose, right? So when you stand with your legs slightly apart, that is more of a power pose. Versus when you stand like this, with one leg straight and another one bent, that is much more of an open pose. It's more of a casual pose, I would say. It's more casual. So again, it depends on who you're talking to and what it is you're trying to say. So you may notice, or you may not have noticed, but I'm changing my pose a lot because this is a group of people who I'm really trying to connect with. And I want to be seen as someone who has authority, but I also don't want to be seen as someone who is unapproachable. Now this morning, whenever I was talking to these executives, most of the time I stood like this, right? There wasn't a lot of hand movement. I really tried to make sure that I, exuded the authority more than anything else. Right? So it just depends. When you're sitting down, the best thing to do is to sit up straight, whether you lean forward or back, sit up straight and keep your arms open. Even if it's just putting them on the table, as you said, like, having a book or a pad and having your hands on either side of that, that's a much more open stance. And be careful about distance. from other people. Different cultures have different expectations around closeness. So just be thoughtful about that in terms of who you're meeting with, and keep a respectable distance from that person. I would say that in general, you want to be like out of their personal space, and what is that, like 20 inches, 24 inches, something like that, like an arm's length away. That is a general rule of thumb. Now, if you're much more familiar with that person, then you might want to stand closer. Now, what happens if they get closer to you? What if they step into your personal space? That's probably not going to get you that job. What do you do?
You want to match it to a degree. Maybe if you don't want to like go right in their face, but you don't want to back up either.
Right.
You want to mimic it, sort of.
Right. And so what I would do if someone did that to me is I would just sort of like move slightly to the side, and then I'd have the conversation with them this way. If they like step right into my space, then I would just like just do this, and I'm still having the conversation with them. I would not step back, because then that really does look like either I'm afraid or I'm uncomfortable. Right? Okay, how much time we have? All right, doing good on time, huh?
Yeah, 13.
All right, so voice. Let's talk about voice. How loudly you speak says something about what you have to say. Right? People who speak very softly do not exude authority. Just saying. Right? And that's a reason why a lot of women are not taken seriously, because women often have very soft voices. So if you're one of those people who has a really soft voice, it's really important for you to project. Right? And that takes practice. That's all it is. You just have to practice speaking louder. Tape yourself. Hear how you sound. Be more observant about other people who are speaking and what the right level is. And if you find someone who you think is speaking at the proper level, record them for a minute, and then record your own voice and see what the difference is. Because I think it's a really important thing, if you tend to be very soft-spoken, to really practice being more assertive. The tone. That's another thing that really is important in terms of how you present your voice. Are you are you talking like a preacher? You know what I mean by a preacher? You're like, this is the way things have to be, and the emphasis is on everything that I have to say. Right? And how does that land on you? When you hear that, what do you think about that kind of conversation?
Uncomfortable and no emphasis, actually.
You say you are comfortable?
And comfortable.
You feel comfortable with that?
I feel not comfortable.
Not comfortable. Okay, good. Okay. Yeah, because it feels like, these are my words, not yours, but it almost feels like I'm doing this because I'm the parent and you're the child. So I'm being very, directive in terms of how I speak to you. So another way to think about it is adult to adult conversation. I want to talk to you as an equal, as someone who has as much to bring to the table and has as much value in what you have to say as I do.
I think it's also the distinction between talking at someone and talking to someone.
That's right. That's right. When you're talking like that, you're actually talking at them, and you're not engaging them in the conversation.
Yeah, Jackie, I've dealt with a lot of people like that. I think we all have, but the one overarching thing I've noticed about people who are talking at me are that they actually feel unheard, and that's why.
I wonder why.
They're coming across. Well, so right, it's like this cycle, but so they're coming across really strong because they want to be heard,
Yes.
but then they're pushing it away. So, in those situations, I find that giving them even more cues that I'm listening and I hear you tends to calm them down a little bit.
Yeah.
Depending on their personality, but just thought I'd share that.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you encounter someone like that,
Right.
you don't have to just sit there and listen. Yeah,
There's
there are
some
things you can
tactics.
do. Absolutely. Yeah. Another one that can be very distracting is talking up. You know what I mean by that? It's like every sentence ends in a question, right? I call that the Valley Girl syndrome. Right? How many times have you been in a conversation with someone and they speak that way? Ever?
Yeah.
And how does that land on you?
I mean, I'd say the hardest trick for me is like sometimes I have phone conference meetings. Like if I'm presenting over the phone, like it's like you have to kind of like ask, because you can't really see the person's emotion or face.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of ask like, oh, is everybody on the same page?
Yeah, well, asking that question is awesome.
Yeah.
That's perfectly okay. It's that everything that you say ends in a question mark. That's the part that can get distracting. And it also sounds like you're not sure of yourself.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It does two things whenever I've heard it, is that one, I can't tell if you're really confident about what you're saying. And then it also eliminates emphasis. So I don't know what's important in the conversation and what isn't important.
That's right.
Because everything's kind of the same.
Exactly. And I think a lot of times people will do that as a way to try to get more engagement and inclusion. But in my experience, it doesn't usually work if you do it all the time. Okay. The third one there is being declarative. Everything that you say is a judgment, a declaration. Even though you're a consultant and you're coming in, with new information and a fresh new perspective, you still don't have all the answers. The one thing that I found in consulting is that the answer generally lies within the client, and it's up to you to try to get at it and pull it out. That's really what your job is. So then we talk about the speed in which you speak. Is it more conversational, like you're just having a conversation with a few of your closest friends? Or is it fast and rushed and, long drawn out sentences and, lots and lots of thoughts all together without giving them a chance to react? All of those things are very distracting, and it makes you lose your client in the process. Also, if you are speaking very slowly and in a condescending way, like you think this person doesn't really understand like what you're trying to say, so therefore you have to speak very slowly and deliberately so that they can understand.
Well, what if your client is speaking in a very fast manner? Wouldn't you want to some degree do the same thing?
I would say no, right? Because again, what you're trying to do is to understand what they're doing, and to me that's like doubling down on a bad idea, because if they're speaking really fast and getting lots of ideas out there before you have a chance to react, and you do the same thing, then at the end of the conversation, neither one of you will understand what's going on, So in that case, I would say, no, you still want to do it in a conversational way, ask lots of questions, that kind of thing. Other questions? All right. Verbal noises. Okay. Can you think of any?
Clearing your throat.
Clearing your throat, yeah.
I have a tendency to agree, with I'm like a lot, and I'm like I really shouldn't do that.
Because you don't really agree?
No, because I agree, but it's like it's coming out sometimes maybe at inappropriate times. So I was just using that as an example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you remember in the debate when Trump and Clinton were debating? I think it was like their second debate, and Trump kept in the microphone. Or what is he doing? He was doing something like really snorting, I think.
Sniffing or something.
Yeah. Oh, I think he was like snorting into the microphone. Do you remember that? He was like that. Imagine, right? I mean, that's kind of the most prevalent recent example that I can think of, because the news blasted him about that the next day. Whatever it was he was doing, it was some kind of noise he was making that was excessive and unnecessary. The thing that people do the most often, though, is they say, right? And they generally say it when they are trying to think of what they're going to say next, and they're filling the space. My advice to you is to be comfortable in the empty space. Get your thoughts together and don't say, It's okay. It's even okay if you're having a conversation and you have to stop a minute to collect your thoughts and then start again. I believe that's better. And it shows that you're being more thoughtful than you're just saying, But that's the world according to Jackie Linton. So.
No,
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you hear it, I have a bad habit, I know, but I even hear newscasters, like, or in commentary, where people use like, or, you know what I mean?
Or right.
So, right?
Yep. Now I have a habit of doing that I really have to watch. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but that's probably the thing that I say. I'll say right.
I was going to say, in my mind, there's nothing that communicates more clearly a lack of preparation or comfort with your audience than those nonverbal ums. When I hear students do it in a presentation, I immediately start noting a lack of preparation.
Okay, there you go.
Or lack of rehearsal.
There you go.
A verbal kind of filler that I recently found out that I use that I had no idea before. I try to be conscientious about my ums, but apparently I say actually.
Okay.
A lot.
Okay.
And to the point where I don't notice it in my speaking, and I don't notice it in other people's speaking. So it's one of those things where I have to really pay attention to being aware of it.
Yes.
For ums get a lot of attention, so you know when you're umming, but sometimes you might have some tics that you're not really fully aware of. Like
that's absolutely right. The way to do this, to really get out of the habit, is to tape yourself. Record yourself. I'm telling my age here, right? Is to record yourself and then listen to how you speak. Just record yourself for 10 minutes and see how many times you use those kinds of verbal noises. All right? Okay, now the last thing is to pay attention to your audience. Now all of these things that we talked about already are generalities. There is no hard and fast rule that works all the time with everybody. I like to think about being an expert consultant is an art, not a science, because it really does depend on your audience and how you present yourself to that audience. So take a cue from the reaction of other people. There are certain things that people may do that will definitely let you know if they are not interested in what you have to say. There may be things like they look away, they're on their phone, or they're, I don't know, they're doodling, they're fidgeting. Even something as simple as like someone who keeps moving around in their seat. Their arms are folded, hands in, right? And they've like checked out. You look at them and their eyes are like glazed over. They are definitely not following what you're saying. Those are really clear signs. Sometimes they're really obvious. Sometimes they're not quite as obvious. So you need to be like a detective and really look for those things as you're interacting with people. But there are also some positive reactions that you can get. People are smiling. They're nodding their head. They are attentive to what you have to say. Their gestures are open. And they ask a lot of questions.
So I realized this is something that I do, and I wanted to get your opinion on it, but I sometimes interject an agreement while someone's talking. So if they're talking about something and I agree, I'd say like, oh, absolutely. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not, to just wait and then voice like, I agree or disagree. I don't know if that's like a positive reaction that's like too...
Well, it can be a distraction. Now, here's somewhere where it could be very helpful to use it. If they're like going on and on and on and on and on, and you want to be able to interject, then you might do it that way. Oh, I completely agree with what you're saying, because that like causes them to pause. It pauses because you agree, and then when you have that moment, there you go.
Or if you're in a position of authority, it's affirming to the person who's speaking also.
That's right. That's right.
Letting them know that they're on the right track.
Right. It is also really helpful when someone is saying a long, diatribe about something you don't agree with, right? Then you could say, you would do it a little bit differently. Say, that's really great. That's, that's really great what you're saying, or, thanks for sharing all of that. Then go into, right. But the idea is that people are more likely to hesitate when you say something positive. Right? Okay.
But an amen every now and again isn't a bad thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you want this to be a conversation. If you find that you're doing all the talking, then you might want to step back and readjust. Okay. So, are there any other questions? How much time do we have? 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow, you're right on time.
Yeah. Are there any other questions that we haven't already talked about? Yes.
Let's go back to the hand gesture issue. So
Uh-huh.
when I get nervous, I have really, really exuberant hand gestures, and when I try to stop, I look really stiff.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering what